Welcome to the channel. In a previous video, we looked at ghosting and motion blurring and visual artifacts for moving video on several different handheld consoles. And one of these brands that we didn't really look at was Anbernic. So today we're going to do some handheld image testing with Anbernic handhelds. So we have the Anbernic RG405M, which is a little older, and we have two newer handhelds, the infamous RG Cube and the RG556, which packs at least for static images, a really nice looking OLED screen. So we will see how well the RG556 does in motion. The testing method here, I did some previous tests with the UFO test website, and that's what we're going to use for these. I also did some tests for a couple of handhelds with Zenless Zone Zero. Only problem is, if we're using these handhelds here, the RG405M is simply just not capable of running Zenless Zone Zero at all, and the RG Cube and the RG556 can both run the game, but they can only run the game at 30 frames per second, so it wouldn't really be a good comparison with the other three devices that we use that were running it at 60 frames per second. So what we're going to look at is 60 frames per second video with the UFO test, and as in the previous videos for this, these were recorded at 240 frames per second, and they will be slowed down to a lower frame rate for this video, because I don't think YouTube's going to let me upload 240 frames per second video anyway. But I just make note of that because some of the recorded motion, when it gets converted back down, it's not going to look quite as smooth as it does on the original handhelds, but you can still see where the ghosting and the other motion artifacts are, even with the videos not being quite as smooth as they are if you're looking at these consoles with your eyes. So with that, we will get right to it. We'll have the discussion of each device and regular footage, and as usual, the 25% speed footage right after that. Up first is the Anbernic RG405M. So this device only has a 640 by 480 screen, so I couldn't quite fit literally everything. Like you can see part of the frames per second down here display being cut off, and for whatever reason this just would not go away. But I was able to fit enough on the screen so that you can get a good idea of what these things look like in motion. One thing you can see from the still frame from the original 240 frames per second video is you can certainly see that this screen has the ghosting and the motion artifacts that are typical of a cheapo LCD screen. So I kind of put this one, if I'm comparing to the first video, I think I've probably put this one around the same place as the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus, just for motion artifacts and blurring and ghosting, which is not a terribly good place. But again, this handheld is old. This is not a you might say not a current generation device, so I guess that's to be expected. Now, maybe it turns out a little better than the Pocket 3 Plus. You'll just have to look at the other video and kind of make your own call there, but I'm putting this at about the same level. And you can see that the ghosting and the motion blurring, when you watch the live video, you can see it's kind of a thing here. So if you're sensitive to that, then this is probably not a device you want to pick up. Up next is the Anbernic RG556, and it is probably not a great surprise that you can see a lot less artifacting in this much what you might say more modern OLED screen than we did in the RG405M, which uses a kind of a cheap LCD. And you do see a little bit of ghosting still, which is not as prevalent as most of the LCD handhelds that I've actually tested. So this is actually a pretty good performance here from the RG556, and you'll certainly see that when the video's in motion. But it's probably no great surprise that the OLED screen in this device is outperforming an older, cheaper device. The last Anbernic we're looking at today is the Anbernic RG Cube, which is kind of an oddball handheld. It's about the size of the RG405M, except for they decided to put a higher resolution 1:1 aspect ratio screen on it. So we have, if you look at it, of course you're going to see some ghosting and motion artifacts. I think this is, in terms of these artifacts here, I think this is a better performance than we get from the RG405M and the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus. So as far as LCD screens go for these kind of artifacts, this is actually not that bad compared to a lot of the other devices. I don't think it reaches up to the level of something like the Odin 2 Mini screen, but it's put in a solid performance. Not quite sure what was going on up here. I think maybe it was just interactions with the room lights creating a little banding in this video. So I'm going to ignore that up here. We'll just focus on this down here where we don't see that effect anyway. But RG Cube, not too bad for a little device with a regular LCD screen. As far as the Anbernics go, I think there is no great surprise here that the clear winner in terms of image quality on pretty much all fronts is the Anbernic RG556. This device has, I think, the best screen that is in any Anbernic device. So if you're looking for quality of the image, it's for still images, quality of the image while it's in motion. I think for Anbernics, you can't beat the RG556 for right now. The Cube is pretty respectable. I think for an LCD, it does pretty good. But, of course, you're not necessarily buying the Cube for image quality alone. You're buying it for this square screen. So the Cube has its own little market here. Although, if you're looking for a machine that is pretty cheap, that plays PlayStation 2 games for at least passably well, and you don't want something big, you want something small, the RG Cube is pretty much where it's at for small emulation devices that can run a fair number of PS2 games. So at least until some of those expensive INEO devices come out, I think the Cube is about the only device in that segment right now, being really small and can also play some PlayStation 2. You might have the Retroids in that same segment, but the Retroid's a good bit wider. Yes, this is the Pocket 3 Plus, but the 4 and 4 Pro are about the same size. Now, the RG405M puts in, well, a typical cheap LCD device performance here, I think, which honestly is a little disappointing because when this thing came out, it was positioned kind of as a premium device, with the metal shell and all that. It's kind of a shame that the screen didn't really live up to expectations, but I guess not really surprising because a lot of those earlier devices had screens that weren't so great. But so RG556 is definitely the winner in this lot, followed by the Cube, and, well, the RG405M is just kind of here. So that's about it for this video. If you like the video, remember to leave a like. If you would like to see more gaming content for handhelds and other things, subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions or comments, comment section's always open, and I hope to see you next video.